It is a common practice across many cultures. In some cultures, it is more formally stated and has fairly specific rules that govern it. I'm talking about the practice of reciprocity, where when one person gives a gift to or does a favor for another person, it places an obligation on the receiver of the gift or favor to reciprocate, if not immediately, then within a certain time. At its most extreme, the practice can actually become a form of manipulation or control. In today's reading from 2 Corinthians, it looks suspiciously like the Corinthians wanted to use reciprocity to control Paul. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Friday, June 16th, 2023. Paul continues today with his defense of his apostolic authority and the truth of the gospel as he taught it. We've seen several instances in the letter where Paul assumes his readers share common knowledge of a particular issue, so he doesn't bother to describe exactly what he's talking about, but only refers to it. The result is that it leaves us to attempt to reconstruct the underlying issue. Sometimes that's easy. Other times, well, not so much. In today's reading from 2 Corinthians, it is not all that difficult to reconstruct what Paul leaves unstated. Here's what he says. I have been a fool. You forced me to it. Indeed, you should have been the ones commending me, for I am not at all inferior to these super apostles, even though I am nothing. The signs of a true apostle were performed among you with utmost patience, signs and wonders and mighty works. How have you been worse off than the other churches, except that I myself did not burden you? Forgive me this wrong. Here I am, ready to come to you this third time, and I will not be a burden because I do not want what is yours, but you. For children ought not to lay up for their parents, but parents for their children. I will most gladly spend and be spent for you. If I love you more, am I to be loved less? Let it be assumed that I did not burden you. Nevertheless, you say, since I was crafty, I took you in by deceit. Did I take advantage of you through any of those whom I sent to you? I urged Titus to go and sent the brother with him. Titus did not take advantage of you, did he? Did we not conduct ourselves with the same spirit? Did we not take the same steps? Apparently here, the Corinthians had a double test of who was a true apostle. The first was the performance of signs, like miracles and healings. Paul hints here that he has done these things in Corinth, and though there is nothing in the New Testament about miracles or healings he performed there, it is hard to imagine that he didn't, since he refers to such things in Romans and Galatians and 1 Thessalonians. The book of Acts also refers to healing miracles Paul performed in a variety of places. So what Paul is saying here at first is that he certainly passes this first test of apostleship. But then he apparently refers to a second test, one that seems a little odd. He tells them he was not, nor will he be, a burden to them, either in his past or in his future visits. Apparently, accepting the hospitality of the church was an important sign of apostolic authority, at least for the Corinthians. I get it. I've been the recipient of hospitality many times. Sometimes it is individuals in the church who extend it. Other times it's the church as a whole. Still other times it's when I visit churches, especially in other countries. The Presbyterians in Pakistan, for example, go out of their way to make us feel welcome when we visit there. I have a pastor friend in Mexico who once explained to me all about Mexican hospitality. He said that when he visits a church member's home, they feed him. And if he doesn't accept extra helpings, it is seen as a slight against the host, an insult. And if he visits more than one family in an evening, well, he's expected to have extra helpings at 2 different dinner tables. He laughs as he pats his ever-expanding belly. This is the upside of hospitality. The downside is when people use hospitality to place another person under a reciprocal obligation. In that case, the hospitality is not really a kindness as much as it is a form of manipulation. It is clear that Paul did not want to be placed under any obligations, either to the Corinthians or to any other church. And why? Because he wanted his only obligation to be to Jesus Christ. He didn't want his message to be diluted in any way or called into question. He had to be able to speak the truth without violating the norms of reciprocity. That's really odd, though, isn't it? But you'd be amazed at how widespread it was in the ancient world, and even into our own age. The Corinthians put Paul in a bit of a pickle. If they insisted on the reception of their hospitality, complete with its obligation of reciprocity as a sign of Paul's apostolic authority, and if Paul refused to go along with this game, it was bound to strain the relationship between himself and the Corinthians. Paul's only option, then, was to double down on the fact that he was the one who had introduced the faith to them. At its best, reciprocity binds us together in bonds of mutuality and mutual love. But when it is used for manipulation, to place someone under an unwilling obligation, then, like Paul, it's best to pass on it. Tomorrow, we finish this letter with some of the most familiar words in the Bible. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.